Welcome to Decentralized News. If you're interested in Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, DeFi, and the macro news that affect it, welcome in. We post to YouTube first, so please subscribe if you would like to catch the videos as soon as they drop. If there are any questions for our team or topics you would like to see covered this year, please comment on our videos. The goal is to be open and available to our listeners while providing unfiltered content that can help create genuine conversations to help the entire space grow. Your input is always appreciated, and thank you for listening. As always, we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's give a brief disclaimer before we get going. This is not financial advice, and we are not your financial advisors. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. A broad range of topics and opinions will be given freely today, so please do your own research. Today, I'm your host, Peter DeRees, and today we have Ozzy. Austin, how are you today, sir? My co-host.
I'm doing great. Happy to be co-hosting with you today on a beautiful Sunday.
It is a beautiful day.
It's only been a few days since we recorded the last show, but there's already plenty of news for us to cover. We're going to try to make today a little bit shorter, but we'll see how it goes.
Let's get right into it. Prince Philip of Serbia. Countries should absolutely follow the example of El Salvador and allocate part of their reserves to Bitcoin. He gave like a long interview where it was really like a comment on the whole space, but from the perspective of smaller countries, it seems to have more of a need for Bitcoin. But did you take a look at that?
Yeah, I did. I don't really know how much of an influence he has in terms of Serbia's total policy. Like, I don't actually know their political system, but I think it'd be pretty good if a prince of your country speaks out in favor, because he's not even just Prince Philip of Serbia, but he's also Prince Philip of Yugoslavia. That's
Huh?
pretty bullish. It's a good,
Yeah, it's royalty, so we don't know. I don't know the political structure over there very well either.
yeah, and it shows that people aren't seeing El Salvador's move as a failure more than a year later.
Well, it's
So
funny you bring it up because that's one of the things I was thinking about was it's still going. Just the fact that they are still doing it and setting that example, I think can't be understated. It hasn't been like 1,000%, like it's changed, reversed the country instantaneously, but it's still going.
yeah, that's it. So that's pretty great. I think it's a good sign for things to come. If we think about the news that we've talked about a couple of weeks ago, where the kind of Federal Reserve of Federal Reserves is now allowing Federal Reserves to create 2% of their reserves in cryptocurrency, I think it's a great sign overall. But that's not the only kind of bullish news that we've had in the market in the last couple. BlackRock has decided to add Bitcoin to their global allocation fund.
Yeah, that is exciting. Anytime I hear about institutional investing, there's a quote here: the fund may invest in cash settled Bitcoin futures that are traded on commodity exchanges registered with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. It's a fund that invests in everything. It manages 15 billion. And there was no mention of limits on how much of the fund would be invested. So I thought that was exciting. No limits.
Yeah, and it goes along with their story about Fidelity the other day. And so to me, it signals like a little bit about the discussion we've been having overall is that we're probably close to the bottom if we're not at the bottom already. And so institutions are seeing this as a good time to get into crypto.
Speaking of institutions and funding into crypto, Animoca is in discussions with possible investors to raise $1 billion this quarter for its new Web3 and Metaverse investment funds. And this was down from, they were originally going to do $2 billion in the first quarter, but still they have goals and it's still $1 billion. I guess they're focused on Web3 gaming companies and they have a $1 billion fundraising goal in quarter one of 2023. The fund will focus on supporting already established Web3 projects, late stage Web3 gaming and metaverse projects. I couldn't find a specific example, but that was what they were talking about.
I'd be thinking Axie, Mana, Sand. There's a ton of metaverse and Web3 games that were coming out towards the end of the bull market. Those are probably more later stage than whereas Sandbox and Mana have been around for a while. So could be interesting.
And just continuing with that, one of the largest investment banks in the world, Morgan Stanley, now hold Bitcoin on behalf of their fund clients. Morgan Stanley, one of the biggest investment banks with 6.5 trillion in assets under management now holds Bitcoin. The story, when I looked at it, was specifically referring to the Morgan Stanley Europe Opportunity Fund, which is a $1 billion fund. It tends to be a passive investment for those who want exposure to a diverse range of assets. Yeah. But it states that the subsidiary may invest in Bitcoin directly through cash settled futures or indirectly through investments in Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. So GBTC or I think the Chicago Mercantile, that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, the futures that are available in the Chicago Mercantile. Um, yeah, the Opportunity Fund bought $3.6 million worth of Grayscale Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So that's a start. We're going to be talking about Grayscale and their Bitcoin trust
It's
in the
interesting
next
that
while.
they're not even flinching about it, because the 3.6 million that I invested is worth 1 million now with GBTC, but it doesn't seem to be stopping them. It's almost like good news, bad news in this story. It's, more money potentially coming into the space, but so far it hasn't been very successful, but they're still going at it. And
It depends
interest
when
in
they bought this because it could have been already on sale at that point. I haven't seen a date
well,
on when they purchased.
yeah, it didn't show a date in the article, but it did talk about that the 3.6 they invested is now worth 1.
Okay. That's
Yeah, that's gone down, but it's still opening the door for future investment, and that's exciting, even though it hasn't necessarily been successful.
yeah, and that's the fact that they're opening their eyes and opening their wallets and their investments to it is good for adoption and good signs, again, that we're probably close to the bottom. Institutions want to be getting in at the best price possible. And so by trying to get in, what's the 16, 17,000 that we're talking about right now, we're probably pretty close to the bottom, and institutions feel that. And so they're announcing their investments. And so I think that's huge. That being said, more than $30 billion was invested in crypto startups by venture capital investors in 2022. So
Yeah, 2,900 different deals, so all over the place.
yeah, that's incredible considering most of this year's market was a bear market. Basically, all of this year's market was a bear market. It shows that
And it seemed
people
like
are.
no, go
It
ahead.
shows that people are like bullish on crypto long term, and that like venture capital firms see crypto as a viable investment. And so that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was a tough year, and it seems like venture capitalists got hurt a lot. There's a lot of venture capital involved with FTX or all these big
Luna.
big group.
Yeah.
Yes, Celsius. They've been hurt. So it'll be interesting to see what this number looks like in 2023.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
pretty consistent with 2021. 2021 only slightly beat it at about 32 billion.
Ooh.
But if it stays the same, it means that that's probably like the asset allocation that um they've upped their asset allocation. Because if you look at previous years from like 2020 through 2016, it stayed around 5 billion, although it varied up and down within that range, all the way up to 10 billion in 2018, but that was height of the bull market. So the fact that if you look at the
Well, this is
charts previously, like it dropped significantly from 2018 to 2019, but it didn't do that when we shifted out of this bull market this time around.
yeah, it's hard not to imagine it growing, honestly. Just talking about it out loud.
Yeah, I could almost see 2023 35 billion, potentially more.
Oh, yeah, I had a bigger number in my head.
Oh yeah, what do you think?
Oh, 100.
I don't know. Based on the growth of this chart, I don't know if I'd say 100 next year, but maybe
It's
50.
for the end of the year, and we start to see some money flowing in. It would be bolstered by, to get to 100 billion, it seemed like it needed to be bolstered by some changes towards the end of the year, some changes in sentiment.
That's for
This story I wanted to bring up, I threw it in there, is the Bitcoin miner heater updates. I was looking into it. It cost $1,200 US. And the question I had about it, and maybe if anyone wants to comment, that'd be awesome, was how much BTC does it earn and how does it earn it? Does it go into a pool, or is it its own miner and you have to wait for it to win a whole block? And what's the ROI potential of it? I couldn't find much information out about that. So I'm curious about it. I like the idea of mining. I like that form of passive income to be involved in the space in that way. So I'm intrigued by this product. But yeah, if anyone has any additional information on it, please do.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. There's only been like 1,200 of them sold up until now. If you're one of those 1,200 people, we would definitely love to hear about it from you because
Providing the experience.
yeah, I'm interested in miners. Miners is one of those things because we're at the bottom of the bear market. I feel the prices of miners have probably bottomed. And so
Mm.
they're one of those things that if I'm going to add them, now's the time to add them probably. And so I've been looking at a few different miners that are available.
Yeah, they were
So
talking about, I think, 14 terahash, but I'm not familiar. I don't run any miners.
the
So for
better ones
12,
do 110 terahash. So
like how much do it cost compared to the $1,200 heater? I would think the heater.
2 to 3 times that. It
So
depends
it's
though.
2 times as productive as this one,
Yeah,
potentially.
it's 110 terahash and it's at 2 to 3,000 or
I see.
3,600, 2,400 to 3,600, depending on the miner, depending where you're getting it, and if you're getting it for a good price and whatever. There's definitely
Interesting.
like some considerations there.
Yeah, it's a new market for me, so I got to do some research. That's for sure.
Yeah. Moving on to just a little bit of economic data. The December jobs report came out on Friday,
Oh yeah.
and it saw unemployment fall even further to 3.5%. So it was right around 3.75 not that long ago, and it's now fallen to 3.5, which is, although it's not record lows, it's quite low, with payrolls rising by over 223,000 people. So
And
that's pretty incredible.
and important to note that it was below the expected number, and that's always a big deal with these economic data and how it affects markets. But it was expected to be 3.7 and came in at 3.5. And that may affect the February 1st Fed rate movement, whether it's zero point 0.5 or 0.25 or what
Yeah,
they feel like they can do.
that's it. The markets definitely jumped up following this news. There was definitely a nice surge in the price of Bitcoin, ETH, but also the Nasdaq, the S&P, the Dow, everything. But exactly, the fact that unemployment fell again despite the highest interest rates in 15 years shows a really strong economy, a strong labor market at the very least. And so it would potentially give the Fed the gusto or the willingness to go to half a point rather than a quarter basis point. And you can see that in the expectations discussions around.
Yeah. Well, everyone expects something to break, and it's okay. Break already.
Yeah, and nothing seems to be breaking. It's like the economy just seems to continue. The labor market keeps being strong. Inflation's falling. It's waiting for that big crash, the hammer to fall, and just hasn't happened yet.
There's some, I just turn to the bearish news, some of the stuff that is affecting the market or being affected by the macro trends in the market. This was a big one that I know you wanted to make sure we covered, but it was the Celsius story. According to a US judge, Celsius customers forfeited their legal rights to their Bitcoin by using the platform, and that 4.2 billion in cryptocurrency deposits are now Celsius's property.
Yeah, that was not your keys, not your coins, is a phrase that's been talked about in crypto for forever. Everyone talks about it, all the influencers, everybody. But the fact that now that's been basically
Codified.
by a US judge, it's not the Supreme Court,
But
it is absolutely precedent.
yeah, it's certainly a reminder. And I know that saying, that mantra that goes around in the circles that we roam in has probably saved more money than any other security feature that I've seen out there in DeFi or cryptocurrencies. Not your
Absolutely.
keys, not your coins.
Yeah. It's now that it's precedent, think about FTX now. Think about Voyager. Think of any of the exchanges that may collapse in the future. This is a huge decision. And I do expect it to probably get challenged by customers in a class action of some kind, but
Yeah. And then it may come down to what the fine print that we looked over actually says in each of these groups, companies.
yeah. And so keep that in mind, and any challenge would take probably many years to get settled. So this is a big decision, and it just is a reminder, if not your keys, not your crypto. So protect your crypto as best as you can.
Absolutely. It's speaking of things are taking forever to resolve. No, it's not XRP. The Mt. Gox exchange, which went bankrupt in 2014, time ago, has postponed the distribution of funds to users from July 31st to September 30th, 2023. So this is highlighted because it's a potential dump on the market that was maybe going to come July 31st. That may keep an eye out for it on September 30th. Hey, something like 130,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah, depends a
Well,
little
less
bit
than
on
a
the
percent.
registration period. So they did extend the registration period from January 10th was the original deadline to March 10th. So that does give more people time, but it could be a huge dump on the market. It's that one thing that there's still a chance that it negatively impacts the market pretty badly.
Especially if it remains as sensitive as it is now come September 30th.
Yeah, the
And maybe it
market's
was
crazy fragile.
easy. Yeah, depending on that kind of volume right now, it'd be massive, right?
Yeah, luckily it's not all one investor, all of these individual investors. At least it wouldn't be like one big sell at once, but it would be still a.
Oh, so when it will be actual Bitcoin, not,
No one seems to know for sure. I thought it was actual Bitcoin that was being redistributed
they're not
out.
going to, they're not going to convert it into stable coins or something like that.
No, I don't
Yep.
think so.
Great question, I guess. It's something I don't know 100% on that.
Yeah, that's it. So I think, like, overall, pushing back the registration deadline's good because it gives people more time who are affected about this, but that didn't realize to kind of make sure they get their crypto back. But at the same time,
Maybe another call out for a comment was everyone is waiting on money from Mt. Gox and has got their finger on the pulse over there about how they're distributing the funds. I'm sure our community would be curious to know.
absolutely. A couple of other little stories before we move into some other news. So the Department of Justice has seized the Robinhood shares that we were talking about that were tied to Sam Bankman-Fried. FTX had asked that those be protected, even though Sam Bankman-Fried had taken a loan from Alameda in order to buy them.
I'd rather any decision to be made. I prefer a judge as opposed to at least he has to go through a judge now to make any decision about funds. It seems, or unless, yeah, it's crypto. He still may have access to some, but anything they know about, it's going to have to go through a judge. You have to go through legal proceedings to get it.
Yeah, so that's pretty great news overall. It means there's a greater chance that there's at least some money that's going to go back to investors that lost billions of dollars to FTX.
More. Oh, go ahead. There's a couple actually. There's the crypto bank Silvergate. I don't know if you want to talk about that one.
That's what I was gonna. That was my next story.
One more though, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Silvergate's laid off 40% of their staff. They were one of the first kind of crypto open banks in the US, and they had 90% of their funds withdrawn from digital assets withdrawn from their business, and they were mainly a digital business. And so that's been pretty significant. And the fact that they laid off so much of their staff, they're a publicly traded company, and so a ton of their stock fell significantly at the same time.
I hear
yeah, if they can salvage everything, but
it survives. There was one more, and I wanted to mention it just because I thought it was a big one. The digital currency group, which is the parent company of Grayscale, has announced new layoffs. and the closure of its HQ Digital Assets Management division. I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so Digital Currency Group is the owner of Genesis. Genesis is one of their sub companies, and they currently have a shortfall of 900 million. If you guys haven't been following the space because of FTX funds that were stuck in FTX, and then, but this is about kind of their HQ Digital, which is basically a subsidiary which does wealth management for like crypto entrepreneurs. And yeah, they were managing 3.5 billion in December, and it's kind of, they decided to shut down because of the broader economic environment and prolonged crypto winter. Obviously, they just weren't ready or unable to handle a bear market. They weren't prepared for it. So that's going to see. It could be kind of part of Barry Silbert's moves to find a way to cover that big hole that is happening at Genesis Trading without affecting Grayscale, because Digital Currency Group also owns Grayscale and their Grayscale Trust, which owns 3.52% of Bitcoin market. So
This story in general scares me a little bit. And it's hard to get excited or believe in any turn in the market until this kind of settles down or figures out what it's going to do. Is it going to?
yeah, that's it. It's like, what's going to happen to Grayscale?
Yeah.
Grayscale and Genesis, what's going on? This is one move, and Barry Silbert's probably gonna have to make a lot more moves in order to help fill that hole. And like we talked about it on the last show, Grayscale's trading at a 45% discount. When we talked about Morgan Stanley's investment, it's down basically 66% in the Grayscale Bitcoin. So once that gets figured out, like even dumping at 3% would have a huge impact on the market right now. So
I'll be watching updates on that one. There was a tweet about U.S. government launching an investigation
I haven't seen that tweet, but
in regards to that.
yeah, I heard you mention it. If you want to go into it a little bit.
Just said there might be an official investigation into it. And I remember one of the comments, which I thought was pretty interesting, was, oh, maybe there's a reason why the SEC didn't approve their spot ETF. Like maybe they had a good reason. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know much else about it other than they announced some sort of investigation by the US government. So yeah, definitely put me on edge a little bit. What's going on over there? But speaking of on edge, Huobi news. Huobi, if I'm saying that correctly, is a centralized exchange advised by Justin Sun, founder of Tron Blockchain. They have been making a lot of news lately, launching a Visa crypto credit card, announcing the payments of their employees in USDC and USDC rather than fiat, and discussions of layoffs. Information available this week has confirmed the latter, with Huobi Exchange confirms a 20% cut down of their workforce as part of the company's restructuring. Let's see, this was also interesting. When the crypto exchange, it was also rumored, and this was going around Twitter, to have also taken down internal communications, which Huobi denies. But sometimes when there's smoke, there's fire. It's a little bit of a scary kind of FUD story.
Yeah.
And then oh, go ahead.
It's with all that FUD, it has had 90 million, like a huge outflow in total funds in the last 24 to 48 hours. So it's not
pretty. And they also have their own stablecoin, which I didn't know this, but it lost its peg. And I was looking at it, and it actually hasn't been at $1 since November 7th. It's been trying to rally, but it's fallen down to 97 cents and has been trying to come back to $1, but hasn't seen $1 since November 7th. But I'm not too familiar with this, but it's just another sign that it's struggling to me.
The stablecoin is for Justin Sun's Tron network. So it's not a widespread stablecoin. It's only if you use Tron, and I don't really know a lot of people that use Tron. So
yeah, I don't know anybody.
Yeah, I've seen some news of like 3 million last week. Last week we talked about $3 million of dollars worth of Tether was frozen on Tron, but yeah, was owned by Justin Sun. He stepped down as CEO last year, but yeah, it's just another kind of bad sign. Tron doesn't really look like it's doing good, and Huobi doesn't look like it's doing good, and so Not financial advice, but if you do have funds there, it'd probably be good idea to move them off exchange and probably preferably not on the Tron network. Just move them to ETH, move them somewhere else where they'll be safe. Because things are definitely looking a little bit more like fire than just smoke now. The evidence and the negativity in the FUD is really mounting. Keep your head out and keep your eye out on things.
There's a couple of kind of hack stories. Balancer protocol has been compromised. Balancer representatives are calling for an urgent withdrawal of liquidity. It was hacked for 500K in a single ETH transaction. It was interesting to read. A carefully crafted transaction taking more than 8 million gas, or about 2/3 of an Ethereum block, stole over 500,000 Ether, wrapped Bitcoin, Chainlink, and synthetic tokens. And also, interesting part of the story, the Balancer team is being accused by a security researcher and the STA team, the researcher, I believe, for ignoring a bug submitted almost 2 months before. And the Balancer CTO, Mike McDonald, confirmed the existence of the report. So they're basically being accused of mismanagement.
Which is super interesting because Balancer, up until now, and they've been around for a while, was seen as the epitome of security. They were seen as very safe. And this is a big news. Oh, their code isn't fully safe. And
Just sitting there and nobody knew, or they knew and they just didn't do anything.
yeah, that's it. It'll be interesting to follow and see if the story evolves about whether they knew or they didn't know or
Right.
who knew. Because
Yeah, I'm not involved in Balancer, but it's been around a little while. I remember when it first started, it's been around a little while.
yeah, it's got its cool form of liquidity pools because instead of it being determined solely based off of basically, oh, you're pulling out some stable coins and you added more Ethereum, the price of Ethereum is now going to drop, even though the value of the Ethereum hasn't really necessarily dropped. And you can create pools with like more than one token or two tokens. Like it doesn't just have to be ETH, USDT, and that's the one pool. It could be Bitcoin, USDT, and ETH. And so they came out with some pretty interesting LPs that kind of innovated in the space, and it's not
Kind of like
great
Grant
news.
Spirit type project. So
Yeah,
to create the LPs.
yeah, it's not great to see that they were hacked.
Yeah.
Do we want to go
See
and give everybody a little bit of update on the Twitter hack that we ran into we talked about in the last show?
Yeah, let's close up with that. According to Security Affairs, we mentioned last week, a person released a file on the breach, or there was a breach of 235 million Twitter users. A person released a file on the breach forum that can be downloaded for only 8 credits and contains the information of those 235 million users.
Yeah, so that's a lot of information, and there is
I guess it was the earlier exploit, like 2000. You had to, the way I read it, and do your own research, but yeah, you had to have had your account for a little while. It's like an earlier exploit.
yeah,
Because I checked, there is a website where you can go check your account and we can post it. Have I been pwned? PWNED. But mine wasn't, but I started in Twitter a little later. I think it was sometime in 2021, but I think very late.
yeah, I'll have to check how old if my name's in there. I haven't had a chance to check yet, so it'll be interesting. It's something that's odd because they aren't really commenting about it. Twitter did confirm it in August, but they're still not. Are they going to do anything to make sure to get it taken down? It's super, super odd.
Very good. Is there any shout outs you want to give before we close it up for today?
No,
I know we got the Fed on the 1st coming out. There's probably some CPI data coming out in between.
on the 13th. So
On the-
keep your eyes out on the 13th. I want to thank everyone that's been commenting and liking our videos. A huge shout out to the audience. We love doing this and we're appreciating all the support that we're getting. If you're interested in joining us on the show, we're really open to having guests and comment, and we'll set up a time and invite you on the show. So Thanks
Yeah,
everyone for listening.
there's a few call outs for comments today. Anyway, thank you all. Yeah. And what Ozzy said, thank you very much, everyone, for your support. And thank you all for listening to Decentralized News. Please consider liking and subscribing to see the videos as soon as they dropped, and stay tuned for our next episode. Have a great day, everyone.